Welcome back. It is exactly 8:43 a.m. and we're now going to be talking with Pamela Ngubane. She goes on to say, I'm a South African Christian who works to educate Christians about Christian Zionism and how it abuses the Bible to shield Israel from scrutiny of its crimes against the Palestinians. A very good morning to you, Pamela. Welcome to the program. And I
Good
salute you
morning.
for taking this stance. Absolutely salute you for taking this stance. Tell us who you are and what is your relationship with the Anglican Church of South Africa?
As a Christian, I'm part of a broader fellowship that includes the Anglican Church and all the other churches that, recognize Jesus as the Messiah who came to teach us about who is God and how to attain a relationship with him. So I actually was a Christian Zionist myself from from 2020 to basically April this year. And it was because I thought that by getting to know the Jewish roots of Jesus, I would actually become a better Christian in my practice and in my understanding of the Bible. But I didn't know that the TV shows that I was watching to get me in touch with this Jewish heritage was actually mostly Christian Zionist programming. And so that's how I got into it. But late last year, early this year, so when I started to see how racist and anti-Christian this new government of Israel was, I started to ask questions and I started to do my own research with the view of actually promoting peace, because I worked for a Christian Zionist organization. And I said to them, if we want to be credible, we need to actually promote peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis instead of just blindly supporting Israel like we had been doing up until that point. But with doing that research, then I started to see the true story of what was actually happening to the Palestinian people, because the Zionists, they present a narrative that they know what is good for the Palestinians, and that the main problem that the Palestinians have is their corrupt leadership. That's the narrative. The Palestinian leadership is corrupt. If it wasn't for them, the Palestinians would have a state along the Oslo lines, but they don't tell you how they are systematically stripping the Palestinians of their land, of their rights. They have a systematic campaign of dehumanization of the Palestinian people. And so when I discovered all these things, I left my job at the organization South African Friends of Israel, and I started to, raise the alarm about Christian Zionism.
Okay. So much there that we need the entire day to talk about all of this. I salute you for your stance. Just to also let you know that when we talk about Palestinian people, we are talking about a very large majority of Muslim Palestinians as well. So it's not only Christian Palestinians, they are in it together. The Zionists believe that Palestine was the promised land. God had promised them the land, and that is why they are wanting to uproot the rightful people of Palestine, to uproot them, and possibly, I guess. What it looks like is it's a genocide of the Palestinian people, very, very sadly. But the international community won't accept it for what it is. The other thing I did want to also point out to you is that you referred to Jesus Christ. And I'd also like to tell you that we as Muslims believe. Uh, we believe that Jesus is one of the prophets that God sent to the people. So we also believe in him. The only difference is that we don't believe he was the son of God, because we don't believe God could beget a human, or a physical son, so to speak. So all of the prophets that you recognize as Christian people, we as Muslims recognize them as well. The story of Noah and the ark, Solomon, David, Jesus, Moses, Aaron, all of that is contained in our Holy Quran as well, as far as the historical facts of us as a people is concerned. So just to give you that little bit of info, maybe you are aware of it, and I'm And I'm going on here about it. But those were the 2 points I did want to make. And I'm wondering how you respond to that.
Well, I actually started to read the Quran after I left my
Alhamdulillah.
job. Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
because I realized that Islamophobia is actually one of the pillars of both Christian and Jewish Zionism, so-called Jewish Zionism. I say so-called Jewish because I don't think Zionism has anything to do with Judaism. It's been
Absolutely.
systematically hijacking the Jewish identity to use it as a
Absolutely.
smokescreen. That's why when you go to Israel, you see menorah everywhere. You know, the menorah is the emblem of the state of Israel, the Star of David, you know. But Zionism is actually a philosophy that was created by atheists who identified as Jews ethnically, but they didn't identify with as Jews, you know, religiously, because if they did, they would actually be governing the state of Israel according to Jewish principles. And the Jewish principles, like you say, you know, the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all worship the same God. They all have the same prophets, obviously with some technicalities, but generally, you know, we all worship the same God. And when you look at what God says about himself in the scriptures, he's a God of peace. You say he is the compassionate, the merciful. You know, in Judaism, he says he loves peace, righteousness, and justice. And he punished the Jewish people because they were not being just and righteous. And in Christianity, you know, Jesus preached only righteousness. He even said, if you think something evil in your mind, you are guilty of sin. You know, so you can't say then that Israel is a Jewish state if they are doing the most horrendous things to the Palestinian people. I mean, it's wanton abuse. It's not even like counterterrorism like they portray it, you know. It's wanton abuse. Like if you look at what they are doing in Hebron, for example, it's shocking. If you look at what they are doing in all over the West Bank, Masafariata, you know, the pogrom in Huwara, all these things show that we're not dealing with a Jewish state. We're dealing with a ethno-nationalist state, a Zionist state, which is a colonial state and which will stop at nothing to take the land away from the Palestinian people using the Bible as a smokescreen. And so a lot of Christians who become Christian Zionists, they believe the narrative that they get taught that, oh no, this is just like Joshua crossing the Jordan River and taking the land from the Canaanites. Now, that is completely inaccurate from a theological perspective, because the Canaanites were godless idol worshippers. The people who are in Palestine now, who were in Palestine in the early 1900s and, you know, in 47 to 49, are Christians, Muslims, and Jews. They have just as much right to that land if we're going to be talking about the promise that God made to Abraham to give them the land. So Christian Zionism actually supplants the true Bible about who Abraham is, who his seed is, because the Jews themselves admit God chose Abraham because Abraham chose God. So everyone who chooses the God of Abraham, Muslim, Christian, and Jew, has the right to the promise of Abraham. And that's why also as Christians, you know, we applaud the Anglican Church, because they're not just standing up for the rights of the Palestinians, they're standing up for the rights of all Christians to continue to have a heritage in the Holy Land, because sites like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, different Christian sites, the Mount of Olives, where Jesus gave his famous sermon, the Church of the Holy Nativity in Bethlehem, these sites are coming under attack from these Zionist ultra-nationalists who claim to be Jews.
And of course, we as Muslims also feel threatened and are under attack by the Zionists wanting to overtake the Al-Aqsa compound. And there's huge atrocities that are being, perpetrated on the Muslim people there. So for us, that is really very, very problematic. How do, other church organizations, and very especially Zionists, responding to you and your position regarding the atrocities being perpetrated on the Palestinian people, the rightful owners of the land of Palestine.
So, like I say, they have this very skewed narrative of this is Joshua coming to take the land from the Canaanites. I mean, I've had to tell a couple of my fellow Christians, like, guys, you don't have the right story. One friend of mine actually said to me yesterday, the Palestinians have nothing to do with Jesus. I'm like, that's not true. First of all, the oldest Christian community on earth is in Palestine, and they are living under oppression by Israel. Secondly, the Muslims honor Jesus as a prophet of God and as the Messiah who's coming back to rule the earth. So you can't say that. But I understand why you're saying that, because you've been taught the same way I've been taught. So there's a lot that has to be done to counter the narrative. And I believe that with the Anglican Church's decision, it's opening up this conversation, and people like myself who know need to really, ramp it up amongst the Christians and say, guys, there is a reason why the Anglican Church has done this. The Anglican Church is very theologically well studied and very well learned. I mean, these are not people who don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the Bible. And they know what the Bible says about the land, who the people that God promised the land to are. He certainly didn't promise it to atheists like David Ben-Gurion, who said mockingly, we don't believe in God, but we believe he gave us the land. I mean, things like that are just an insult to anyone of conscience. And so I think that, beyond even this move by the Anglican Church, I really hope that it can also be the beginning of serious interfaith work between the people of the Abrahamic faiths to stand up for justice in the Holy Land, because that land is holy to all of us and we all have a right there. Interfaith doesn't mean we have to attend each other's church services or whatever, because theologically that doesn't make any sense. But we all have very strong understandings of what that land means. There was harmony and peace in that land between Jews, Christians, and Muslims before the Nakba. And so we can go back there, but we need to be strong, and we need to call out those people who are misusing the Bible, because Christian Zionists also have a lot of support from pastors who are not theologically sound. That's where they thrive. And they also thrive in poor communities where they tell people, God said that if people bless Abraham, then God will bless those people. And if people curse Abraham, then God will curse those people. And then they appropriate that promise specifically to the Jewish people, and even more specifically to the Zionist people. And they totally dehumanize the Jews that are anti-Zionist. They believe the Zionist narrative that these are self-hating Jews. They dehumanize the Palestinian Christians. They totally dehumanize Muslims, because, as I said, Islamophobia is a pillar of Christian Zionism. So it's a dehumanization campaign akin to the same dehumanization campaign that was couched in the Bible that justified colonization, slavery, and apartheid. So I think Christians need to be educated about what this is about. Poverty is a reality. And so when they say God will bless you for blessing Israel, they then use US taxpayer dollars, for example, or church collections from the Christians United for Israel to manufacture these blessings. So poor communities now get food parcels from the South African Jewish Board of Deputies and their affiliated organizations, or the South African Zionist Federation, and the Mashav organization goes to countries around Africa and does agricultural projects and school projects. And then the Christian Zionists say, you see, God is blessing these nations and these people for blessing Israel. They don't tell you that $3.8 billion of US taxpayer money is being given to Israel every year unconditionally. And some of that is used by organizations like the Department of Strategic Affairs of the State of Israel to manufacture these blessings.
Okay, we do know that there are strong political reasons for why the West needs to keep Israel strategically placed in the Middle East. We also know that the armaments manufacturers in the West need to keep their industries alive, because they then need to supply all the weapons to Israel. Israel is armed to the hilt to obviously to get rid of the Palestinians, and I don't think any one of their neighbors would dare attack them, because they know that they would be quite a force to be reckoned with. But to wrap up, because we don't have much time left, all of this is steeped in colonialism. It was the British that annexed, obviously, Palestine way back in 1947. Not only Palestine, but created all the problems in the division in India as well, India and Pakistan. Until today, there's that disputed territory in Kashmir. But I'm going off track here because we are talking Palestine and the Palestinian people. Um, the Anglican Church declares Israel an apartheid state. The response from the Jewish Board of Deputies and other such organizations, not only in South Africa, but all around the world, they must be up in arms regarding the statement.
Well, they're calling it anti-Semitic. And this is what
Ah,
they do. Everything is anti-Semitic that has anything that, just asking Israel to introspect is anti-Semitic. And Daniel Levy points out that the reason why this is happening, it's anti-Semitic, is because they've overhumanized themselves. In the process of dehumanizing the Palestinians, they've overhumanized themselves. And the Christian Zionists also help them to overhumanize them. Everything that they do is good. Everything that they do is legitimate, is right, is okay. And so how dare you ask me, who is perfect and infallible, apparently, to introspect and consider that what I'm doing is wrong. So we're dealing with, I don't know, narcissists, delusional people. I don't know what's going on, but maybe there's a correlation between this type of thinking and the fact that Israel is like the number one opioid addict country in the world. I think there's a lot that's being done to stifle people's conscience in that land, and a lot that's being done to stop people from actually being human themselves. Because when you dehumanize one person, you're dehumanizing yourself. As much as you may think you're overhumanizing yourself, you're actually undermining your own humanity, because no one has a right to pretend that they are infallible, because we can see then it leads to the most atrocious crimes against humanity, like during apartheid.
well, of course, they do believe they are the chosen people of God, and Israel, or rather Palestine, was the promised land by God to the people, to the Zionists, not the Jewish people, the Zionists. And they will continue with that narrative to claim rights in the land of Palestine and to continue subjugating the rightful people of Palestine. But that's all we have time for. A fascinating discussion. It could go on forever. Look forward to future discussions with you. Thank you indeed. Go well. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless.
1:09, and time for the news bulletin with Zai Jadwood, who is standing by to talk with us.